Okay.
So, quick update. Um, I had the last few days meticulously planned out, and nothing kind of went to plan, and that's all right, because we might have just had a better plan. Basically, we've been doing a lot of thinking, because we're on a small farm up here in North Idaho, 25 acres, not a lot, but it should be enough, I feel, to make, at least subsidize my living, and try to make some money. Otherwise, I don't know, it's kind of hard sometimes to justify being on 25 acres. I'm not one who's trying to start a hobby farm. Nothing wrong with hobby farms. In fact, we've been there, we've done that. But I'm trying to just do something differently. So that brings me to what my plan was. This last week, I was going to drive to Georgia and buy 6 Ossabaw pigs, if you know anything about those pigs. And for whatever reason, I didn't. I just couldn't seal the deal in my own mind, basically. And, we've had a lot of different pig breeds. We've had Mulefoot, and various breeds. And we wanted something that was a top-notch meat. And Ossabaw is, Mulefoot are. But at the end of the day, we started out on our road trip, and we didn't get very far until we
took a detour.
We took a little detour, yes. And we stopped at a little farm that was selling Manglista pig, little baby, and I'll show you a picture of that later. And that's as far as we got to Georgia, is maybe an hour from our house, and we returned with a little baby pig. So, decidedly so, we now are trying to kind of build up Manglista farm. And I guess my vision for it is to grow it and market it as meat, but not I see a lot of different way people do this, and some will just take it to a local meat market and then advertise on Craigslist and sell your meat that way. Perfectly fine. There again, I'm wanting to do something a little bit different. I'm wanting to kind of avoid Craigslist. I'm not really a fan of Craigslist, and I'm kind of really wanting to, perhaps at some point, if I could supply enough, is just sell the meat to I don't know, a meat purveyor in Seattle, meat purveyor in LA, I really don't know, and at this point, don't need to know. So that's kind of where we're at. We have one Manglista, and so now we're a Manglista farm. Not really.
This one was cheap.
This one was cheap.
Starting to find that most of them are very expensive.
Yeah, most of them are expensive, so this could be kind of a really slow kind of climb. But back to the thought, you're sitting on a farm, what is it you're going to raise, what is it you're going to do? We've had sheep, we've had goats, we've had, if you name it, and it's been on a hobby farm, we've had it. So so this is sort of a new adventure. It'll be interesting to see where it goes, see if it grows, see if it gets abandoned. I don't know, but that's kind of the new direction. I really want to start putting an emphasis on this farm that we're on, doing something that's going to have some sort of return, and also thinking outside of the box at the same time. I don't want to end up just a hobby farm where I raise a sheep and it goes in my own freezer. I raise a pig and it goes in my own freezer, or I sell a few on Craigslist. I don't want to do that. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And believe it or not, just that took several days of deciding and belaboring and, you know, what is best, what is not best. I really do want to do the Asaba, but at this time anyway, especially with a car that maybe doesn't work so well, 78, 80 hours of driving is not what I care to do at the moment. So switching gears, the weather here is starting to change, and it just seems like I have a ton of stuff that I have to do before the weather, you know, actually changes. We had a little rain a few days ago. It's cooling off at night. So that brings me to the pile you see behind us, our firewood. And last winter, a tree went down behind the house, and still struggling, believe it or not. It was a big tree to get it all down here. I don't know how much of it's going to be dry and burnable this summer, but I'm thinking easily, or this winter, I'm thinking easily from this one tree, possibly even squeezing out 2 winters worth of firewood. I would love not to have to get firewood next year. I could concentrate on other things. I'm also trying to get the Toyota pickup. Trying to get that going, and I'll show you that in a moment. For other people who kind of have a vehicle or something that, you know, maybe somebody else is in the same situation where they need to do some sanding, and they want to repaint their vehicle, but they don't want to go completely to a, you know, rattle can job. They want to do something fairly professional. Problem I ran into, and so I'm hoping to save somebody else the pain. I went out and I bought a DA sander, because that's what you do if you do auto body. And I went out and bought a compressor. Now the DA sander was rated for, I go by the rating of the SCFMs. It's supposed to be kind of a universal, so that's what I go by. And this tool is rated for 3 SFCMs, or SCFMs rather. Is rated for 3. I bought a compressor that was rated for 5.1. So in my logic, I'm like, okay, that should run this DA sander. Sure, I might have to stop. I might have to let the machine catch up. But seriously, at best, I got about 12 seconds of sanding, and then it wouldn't even spin. I mean, it was a disaster. So then I went to Home Depot, and that's where I actually bought these. I returned them, went back to Home Depot, and just bought or was looking at the biggest compressors they had. They had a 60-gallon and an 80-gallon, and rated somewhere in the 13, 14 and a half SCFMs. And of course, the guy at the counter, I talked to one Home Depot employee, and he told me, oh, and of course I didn't tell him I bought my brand new compressor from Home Depot. He's like, oh, it's got to be your compressor. I would have your compressor fix. And then I talked to another employee, and he's like, oh, it's got to be the DA sander. Bring it back. Well, I took them both back, and I happen to know, because I got a brother who does some metal work, and he once went through this. He went to Home Depot. He bought the biggest compressor that they offered. Long story short, it didn't run his DA sander either. So I bought, and I'll show you in a minute, I bought an electric Porta-Cable, and I did some online research, and people who did auto body were saying that if you absolutely have to go electric, get this one. So I got it. It was I don't recall, 140 bucks, 150 bucks, I don't know. And I'm really pleased with how it works. It might spin slightly slower than a DA, but if you're not having to, burn up your compressor, or perhaps you know, stop every minute or half minute, bam, I just start sanding and I don't have to stop, and it does a really good job. So I'll show you the sander I got, and I'll also show you kind of what I'm up against with the Toyota. And I think later this evening too, I think we might get around to butchering turkeys. If so, we'll throw that on here and show you our new Manglista. And here's one farm cat.
Out of many.
And anything to add?
No.
No?
Mittens gave birth.
Yes, Mittens gave birth. We have a litter of kittens. A litter? I think you refer to them as a litter.
3.
So we have 3 kittens. So we've got way too many cats, way too many dogs. We are a hobby farm at this point. Just trying to change that. All right, I'll show you the Toyota. All right, guys. So if you're in the same boat that I am and you don't have a big 3-phase compressor, another thing you need to realize is you can buy a 3-phase compressor. Doesn't mean you have power from the street to run it, which is the case here. So for the rest of us, I've been extremely happy. The Porta-Cable, the 4.5, absolute great buy. And for somebody who's not doing this continuously for a job, it works awesome. So it's got the, this uses the sticky sandpaper. It does have a handle. I don't like it. And it also comes with a polishing wheel that you can put on. So I can take this off and put a polishing. And it is dual action. Just like a DA sander, it's a dual action, so it spins, but it also kind of vibrates from side to side. Highly recommended. And I won't show you necessarily in work. I mean, it sands like everything else. I've been buying these. They're the Stick Fast, and I've been hitting everything with 80. I did pick up some 40. I haven't even touched it yet, and I got some 120. So what I only have about maybe 3 hours at best into sanding this Toyota. I am not taking the whole thing down to bare metal. So this is, I do have to sand in here where you see the heavy blue. I've not done that yet, but this is as good as it's getting. There are areas, this pickup had been, had the factory paint. Then at some point it had been reprimed, repainted, some Bondo, some actual brazing. I'm not shooting for perfection on this truck. I am just gonna shoot for, I'd rather go with a heavier sand. It's nothing but getting a firewood farm truck. So I'm not worried about polishing it. I'm worried about the paint stain on and it not rusting. Having said that, some of the rust that you see, actually, as I'm sanding, I don't even see because it's under the paint. Like even little rust specks like this, I've got them all over the truck. All over the truck. Don't even see them, they're under the paint. So what I'm gonna do is sand everything down to kind of what you see in here. Then I'm gonna mix up half vinegar, half water, and I'm gonna literally address all the rust. Wherever I find rust, I'm gonna address it with this vinegar and water. Wipe it all down, and I'm trying to, and I don't know yet, maybe some of you have an idea on this. I'm thinking about hitting it all with epoxy primer, then doing my Bondo work, or doing my Bondo work and hitting it with epoxy primer, or epoxy primer, Bondo, and another coat of epoxy primer. I haven't decided yet. I kind of like the last idea. So I'll show you the side here. This is as good as I am going to sand it down. I do have to sand, in places, come back by hand, sand in places like this, up under here somewhat. But as far as the field, if you could feel this, on this truck, it's pretty much going to get a skim of Bondo from here to here on the bed all the way up. If any of you know about Toyotas and how they're put together, they actually rust from the inside out. If you're wanting to restore this as, I don't even know, a trailer queen, I guess, you would have to drill out all these tack welds, take it apart, address inside, and then weld everything back. There's absolutely no way I'm going to do that. But you can see all these divots, you can see these blue divots. All these are where they were tack welded. All of them. And what happens is as inside the two sheet metals rust, that rust expands and it pushes those two surfaces apart. And when it pushes those two surfaces apart, it makes all those welds divot. So if you were to feel down this or look down it, you can't just paint the truck. It would look really bad. So Bondo is what it's gonna get. But little rust spots. And I have no doubt that it's rusting from the inside out. I'm not quite sure how to address inside. I did pour some rust converter when it was upside down, trying to get the rust converter to kind of leak down in. But of course you can't see, you don't know how well you got it. And then along here, there was no seam sealer. And I think the theory might be is if you get water in here, you want it to run out. And I don't know. I'm trying to debate whether I should be putting seam sealer in here because that whole joint is rusted. So I don't know. It's I'm just trying to prolong the life at this point. Got all this sanded, clear up to here. So clear up to here is sanded except for inside stuff that I have to do by hand, and I don't have inside of the bed of the truck yet, and I don't have the two front fenders. So I'll update you on that when I get to it. And that's as far as I have. I have about 3 hours in sanding, and the other side looks just like this one. So that's it for the Toyota project for today. One more thing, when I bought this truck, a tree had fallen on it. So I pounded out the fender, it dented one of the fenders. It dented along here pretty bad. It dented this line pretty bad, and up through here pretty bad. So I pounded it out. I was getting that, that oil canning. When you press on it, you get that oil canning. And you've got to get the oil canning out. So I did the heat shrink. I'd heat up, little spots, and then I'd put ice cubes on it. And I got the oil canning out, but I'm not gonna go without Bondo here. There's gonna be all Bondo in here, some in here. This area I'll have to get Bondo. And this truck did have Bondo from before. Here was a dent before. This is Bondo. And I sanded out all this Bondo because it was cracked. And I'm gonna put Bondo in there. It'll crack out eventually, but this will give it some life for a year. So I got this sanded. I gotta sand the other side. And that's the Toyota update. All right, so this is Sunflower. We just came up with the name Sunflower because its coat kind of looks like a sunflower seed. I know, original. But so this is our very first time ever having Mangleys to pig. We have it in the house so that it can kind of get friendly with us, and also being that we only have one pig, pigs really do not like to be by themselves, and I've actually heard stories where pigs can kind of get stressed and even die. So this way, it's around umpteen cats, umpteen dogs, kids, and it'll stay in here, I don't know, several weeks. Hopefully we can find another little pig to get it a playmate.
And it's not dirty. We've had it in the house several days and it does not poop or pee in here.
No, we have a kennel over there, and it'll go there when it needs to do its business, so it's never made a mess, unlike our dogs, who make messes, it seems like every 30 minutes. So, little friendly guy. Earlier, this guy, and I think it was this dog, were both kind of sharing this bed, taking a nap, so they get along real well. I just made it some milk, warm milk, but it really has been eating dog food. It prefers dog food for some reason.
It does have actual food, pig food that it needs.
And I don't think it's wanting to share. You're not wanting to share, are you? That is your milk. All right.